Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, taking a look at race number 10 at Churchill Downs on Clark Handicap Friday. It's the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. We've got some 3-year-old fillies traveling 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. It is a big field, and Chad Brown is the morning line favorite, Matt. And the number 10, Stella D Camelot, who pulled off an 8-1 upset last time out in the Pebbles Stakes. This is a horse that showed okay form overseas. It wasn't the greatest form in the world, but she earned a 93 buyer in the Pebbles. I'm interested to see if you concur with my opinion. I think a lot of things went her way in that race. She broke slow like a lot of European horses, but that actually worked for her considering the pace was fast. And then she got a great inside-out ride under Eric Cancel.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I also think you have to discuss the fact that she was a little bit keen down the backside too, and she just sort of pulled herself up into that spot, despite the fact that Eric Cancel was trying to get her to relax a little bit. But at the same time, I kind of looked at it and said, geez, for her to overcome, the slow start, which ultimately ended up kind of working to her advantage, but to finish the way that she did, I thought it was pretty impressive. I guess the concern I have is, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, I'm not totally sold on the quality of that field. And I don't know that, I think everyone just automatically assumes, well, if it was a stakes race up in New York, it must have had some nice horses, including, probably more than one for Chad, X, Y, and Z. I'm not totally convinced that this is going to be a cakewalk for her. I think there's some decent runners in this spot, and I think she's going to need to run something pretty darn close to that 93 that she did in the Pebbles.
Everyone would agree that she's a logical contender, but whether you take 2-1 to win on her in this race is a different story. I'm not sure the edge is so strong that you want to take a relatively short price. Plus, she might have really benefited from that soft turf course as well. That's what she's used to running over on Europe. And I think if she breaks slowly in this big bulky field going 1 mile and a 16th for the first time, it could certainly work against her. I want to take a look at the Timeform US pace projector because we're expecting some gas in this race. Timeform US has a red bar indicating a fast pace. Listen, I'd be stunned if Stella D Camelot, the 10, is out there on the lead, which is why we handicap the pace projector and urge you all to do the same. I do think the 5 Cool Beans makes the front under Florent Giroux.
I was going to say, when you go through and look at her most recent run, she was out there cutting out the fractions in that Valley View. I thought she ran pretty well, all things considered. Keep in mind, that was the day that Daddy is a Legend shot through that inside rail, when realistically she was the one that was moving pretty well at that point. And then 2 starts back up at Saratoga, she wired the field. I think with Flo aboard, you've got one way to go. You're going to send. You're going to try to take this field gate to wire. From a speed figure standpoint, she fits in here quite well. But if you do believe the pace projector and that she'll take some heat, I just kind of feel like 4-1. I'd probably want a little bit more as far as value is concerned.
I think she'll take some heat. I question the pace projector, whether the pace will really be overly fast, whether the 10 Stella D Camelot actually does really go after any of the other ones. I think Cool Beans will be on the lead. I think the pace will be fair, not blazing. But she's a kind of horse that likes to run second and third. I mean, she's only finished first once in her career, and that was at 1 mile. Cool Beans is a horse I have to use in any kind of multiple race wagers, but I might want a better price. I agree with you. I think 4-1 is a little bit light. Let's talk about Princess Warrior. This is a very logical contender based on many factors. She earned a 116 Timeform US pace speed rating for her most recent start, the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Cup, where she was just simply overmatched against better horses, but she's been rock solid throughout all of 2018, only winning once, but she's really run hard in all of her races. Now, if you believe the buyers, she's probably plateaued in sort of the mid-80s range, but she's got a good setup perhaps in front of her. She'll come running late.
I think she's got a nice turn of foot, too. And not only did she face much better horses, you see Rushing Fall listed in there in that QE2 Cup, but there was no pace that day. It was Timeform US had all blue fractions throughout. So a horse like her trying to close from off of it against better, that's just never going to work. You go to that Dueling Grounds Oaks. I thought she ran just fine that day. And Auxerre is the little sister to Arrowgate, so I'm not going to hold that against her. Thought she ran fine in the Pucker Up, considering how wide she was. You go all the way back to that N2L race at Ellis Park. Visually, I thought that was very impressive. If she gets a little bit of pace in here, I think she's very interesting. To be honest, 7-2 to me seems like a pretty severe underlay, though. I'd want her probably at that 6-1 range.
The 8 Get Explicit is 6-1 on the morning line, and she finished ahead of 3 of these common foes in the Valley View at Keeneland on October the 19th, one of them being Cool Beans. She did get a solid pace to run at. She came with a good run. She just got beat a half a length. I wonder if you think the Valley View buyer might be inflated. I think the jury is still out.
Yeah, I guess the tough thing is there's only a handful of horses, and really, I guess put it this way. You never truly know until you see horses exit that and then see what they ultimately do in their subsequent starts. When I look at it at face value, the time form numbers match up pretty well with the buyers. If you believe that a horse like Colonia, who ultimately won that day, if you believe that she was capable of running somewhere in that low 90 range, which based on her prior form, whether it was in New York or in California, would suggest that she could. I don't want to say that I think it's way high, but at the same time, I can understand a little bit of trepidation looking at that.
Dark Artist had a 3-race win streak snapped last time out in the Grade 3 pucker-up. She did not have a good trip. My concern with Dark Artist is twofold, and she should be a solid enough price on the tote board. One, it's the plethora of layoffs. She has only raced once since June. And second is this post position. This is a filly that I think wants to be at least in mid-pack or closer, and she could be forced wide if she is actually sent a little bit coming out of the gate from this outside post.
Yeah, difficult outside draw. You brought up that she didn't have the best of trips in that most recent run in the pucker-up. Having said that, I'm still not in love with the fact that her 4 most recent runs have been 81, 82, 81, 82. She's going to need to step forward if she's going to get the job done.
Before we get to our top selections, and we have some prices in here, we'll talk about some of the other long shots in this race. Down on the rail, the number 1, Lessons from Avery, maiden winner last time out at Keeneland. If you believe the time form U.S. pace figures, color-coded red, she got a great setup.
Certainly did. The 3 most recent runs all came with blinkers. I think they're the best races of her career, but even having said that, she's still on the slow side.
Cabello rallied from way out of it, only beaten a length and 3/4 in that Valley View. I think a lot of folks will look at that Valley View and say, blanket finish, how good was the race?
That's fair. I think that's an honest thing to consider. To be honest with you, I like the way that she finished. Keep in mind, she was 124-1 that day, so you kind of, do with her what you will. I would consider using her underneath.
I think Overthinking is a sneaky long shot for a sneaky good trainer in Victoria Oliver. That pace was pretty legitimate at 1 mile and 3/16 last time out at Keeneland. Overthinking was up and on that pace all the way throughout, won comfortably with an 84 Beyer speed figure. She ran well against males 3 starts back to the tune of a career best 88 Beyer speed figure. I think 1 mile and 1/16 might actually be a little bit sharp for her, but why can't she just kind of tuck into a 3rd or 4th spot at a big price under Corey Lannery?
I picked her 2 back in that Dueling Ground Oaks, and then in this most recent run, I thought she was really impressive. I thought about picking her on top here. I picked her 3rd ultimately. I think she could work out a perfect trip in this spot. If you think that there's perhaps a little bit of a more modest pace than the pace projector suggests, I think she could work out a very similar trip to the one that she did at Keeneland. You bring up my biggest concern. I think she's better with a little bit more ground.
Divine Queen pulled off a $100 upset when she won the Dogwood on dirt 2 starts back. No match for subsequent Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint winner Shamrock Rose in the Raven Run. She's only raced once on turf. I think the jury's still out as to whether she can run on the surface. She ran to a solid allowance type that day. Valentine Wish, who came out of that race to hit the board in 3 consecutive starts. Beyer 78, 82. I guess you can improve on turf. She's really not my kind of horse.
The only figure that makes her a fringe contender is the run in that Dogwood, which came over a sloppy sealed main track. To me, she's not fast enough.
Arabella Bella, the 11, might be a pace figure. She's stretching out. She's fresh off of a May layoff. She ran on a synthetic surface for a $75,000 tag most recently, finishing ahead of 2 next out winners. And the winner of that race, Jean Elizabeth's a good synth horse. In her next 6 starts, 2 wins, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. Not sure she's a turf horse. I think she's more of a mid-level claimer.
On paper, she's very difficult to make. If you like her and she wins, you're going to make out pretty well.
We both respect the Chad horse, but we want to take swings with other options at better prices. And let's take a look at our top picks. You're going to go with the number 3, Angel of Mischief. Norm Cassie's done a great job with Angel of Mischief. This is a horse that's only raced 3 times. After the debut, he realized turf, blinkers, voila. This horse is 2 for 2, and she's got a versatile running style.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how she's handled beneath Gaffalione this time around, because if the pace doesn't materialize, perhaps they move her and be a little bit more aggressive, get her into it. But the thing that I was most taken by with that most recent run, not only was it against older horses, she's only ever started against older horses. On the far turn, Julian Leparoux wasn't moving a muscle, and she just absolutely blitzed that field, rolled on the outside. When he asked her to go, she went. I'm sure some people will look at the stretch run and say I didn't like that she was kind of changing leads a couple times, looking out at the grandstand. I think she's just a little bit on the green side still, figuring things out. To me, if anyone's going to take a giant step forward here, I think it might be a horse like this who's so lightly raced, looks like the sky is the limit from a potential standpoint, and you're probably going to still get a pretty good number, 15-1 in the morning line. Maybe she's not quite in that range, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if she goes off in that 10 to 12 range.
Give me numbers.
In this spot, I'm going to go 3-10-7-5.
I'm going to try to make a case for the 2. High Tech goes out for Ian Wilkes. Ian Wilkes won this race in 2016 with Linden. I don't think High Tech has run a bad route race in her career. A winner 3 starts back at this mile and a 16th distance, then a good second at a big price Beyond Blame, who I think is a legitimately grade 3 type. She would fit in a race like this. Last time out in the Valley View, I know she finished behind several of these horses. I don't think that trip worked out at all. She was 4 wide every step of the way, and then she just flattened out. This time, I think she can grab the pocket. I think she's faster than Lessons from Avery from the rail. I think if the other speeds go, Chris Landeros can get her into the pocket, and instead of being wide, she saves every inch of ground. I'm curious to see how good High Tech is. I know she'll be a big price. She's been 72-1 and 45-1 in her last 2.
You know, you brought up that she was wide, and then even coming down the lane, I thought she was in just kind of an uncomfortable spot in and amongst horses. That was when the big closers started rolling on the outside, so I don't want to hold that against her. I thought this was an instance where, you know what, from a time form standpoint, the raw numbers, each of the past 2, she earned 108s. That puts her right there in sort of the shouting distance of the top end horses, and you're going to get another giant price. I don't think she's out of it without a stretch.
Matt's going with Angel of Mischief. I'm going with High Tech, 2-10-5-8 for me in the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere, one of 2 graded stakes races at Churchill on Friday. And the approximate post time for the Mrs. Revere, 5:27. Good luck.